Ukrainian forces in Sumy successfully exploit methodical maneuver warfare, pressing forward settlement by settlement to turn Russian positions into manageable targets. Rather than trading lives in costly frontal fights, Ukrainian commanders isolate enemy detachments, sever their supply lines, and then tighten the noose until those positions become untenable. Relentless air and drone strikes have exposed Russian units, leaving many undersupplied and unrotated for several weeks, reports Euromaidan Press media outlet. By bypassing strongpoints and collapsing salients piece by piece, Ukraine has been able to push north of Kindrativka and even probe back into Kursk, while turning both sides of the border into a flexible battlefield. Another push north from Andriivka led to Oleksiivka being cut off on three sides, and the Russians there facing an increasingly dangerous situation. The encirclement is the result of coordinated Ukrainian maneuver, constant fire control, and persistent pressure, with Ukrainian units now executing flanking attacks to close lateral routes. At the same time, Ukrainian drone units pummel Russian concentrations and roads in the area with hundreds of strikes. This denies the Russians any possibility of moving freely and degrades all reinforcement efforts. With only a single usable road into Oleksiivka, bringing supplies, evacuating casualties, or rotating troops has become effectively impossible, as anyone attempting the approach is detected and struck long before it reaches the outer edge of the settlement. Russian soldiers on the ground now openly warn that Oleksiivka is heading for the same fate as Kindrativka unless the Russian command abandons the position rather than bury more troops there, as they report that the semi-encirclement is rapidly turning into a slaughter. Instead, Russian officers have reacted with frantic redeployments in a bid to break the encirclement, as the exhausted 382nd Separate Infantry Battalion of the 810th Russian Naval Brigade was pushed into action at Kindrativka. Euromaidan Press says, supposed to mount a counterattack and relieve the pocket at Oleksiivka under normal strength, this formation would field roughly 1,000 soldiers, but under the current conditions, it only musters close to 500. Notably, a large number of these are reportedly new mobilized, poorly trained and badly equipped soldiers thrown in just to bring the battalion up to a higher combat readiness on paper. Russian sources confirm all combat-effective reserves have been redeployed to Pokrovsk, leaving only second-tier and understrength units for the task of preventing a full-on collapse. One Russian officer even reported they receive only older people, marginals, and simply not combat-ready recruits in poor physical condition. He added that to prevent desertion or the shooting of officers, they are constantly watched by military police and are only issued weapons right before combat missions with ammunition limited to 2 magazines each. The attempted rushed countermeasure to attack Kindrativka to relieve pressure at Oleksiivka was predictable and fated to fail. Euromaidan Press says replacements arrived under fire, becoming immediate targets for Ukrainian drone and artillery assets, with exhausted Russian units unable to form coherent assault echelons. Overall, with the Ukrainians maintaining pressure by holding fire control over the approaches, continuing daily drone strikes, and refusing to be lured into costly frontal battles, Oleksiivka's fate will mirror earlier Russian collapses in the area. Ukraine's advantage is decisive, with its troops being on the offensive and able to choose when and where to fight.
Ukraine is preparing to repatriate 1,000 more captives during a new prisoner swap with Russia, President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed on September 19 in a press briefing. He stated that work is underway to finalize the list of names of persons who will be exchanged. Furthermore, Zelensky said there is no progress to end the war as Russia is deliberately dragging out talks. We can meet with them at least tomorrow, if we just want to talk. But we need a result. We have read all their memorandums, we know them well. And they have read ours, they have studied them very well. They know what they want, and we know what we want, the Ukrainian leader said. Zelensky reported that Russian forces had tried to encircle Ukrainian troops near Dobropilya and Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, but Ukrainian counteroffensives instead succeeded in surrounding the Russian units. He stated that about 330 square kilometers are under Ukrainian control, with 160 square kilometers fully liberated and over 170 cleared of Russian forces. He noted that Russia is now deploying reinforcements, including the 61st Marine Brigade, to try to maintain their positions. He also reported heavy fighting in the Kupiansk area of the Kharkiv region, where Ukrainian units are actively engaged in combat, targeting concentrations of Russian forces, and conducting counter-sabotage and clearing operations. Zelensky emphasized that Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian oil and military infrastructure, including the Druzhba refinery and pipeline, have already had an impact. He noted that Ukrainian-made drones have demonstrated their effectiveness but that the number being used daily remains insufficient. The production of long-range drones has increased significantly, and further expansion now depends on available funding. As soon as the number of drones is comparable to Russia's, they will feel it, in terms of fuel shortages, in terms of scale. We see more and more flying every day. For now, this is only a financial issue, the president told journalists. Zelensky also pointed to the effectiveness of long-range drone strikes on Russian military targets, noting that they are supported by Ukraine's allies because they avoid civilian harm. He described these strikes as critical logistical operations that disrupt Russian infrastructure. Zelensky announced that Ukraine would present a proposal within 10 days to allow limited arms exports. Moreover, Zelensky said that Poland and Romania could assist Ukraine in intercepting Russian drones, not only to protect Ukrainian territory but also to prevent drones from reaching their own. When asked about the possibility of a Korean model to end the war, referring to a ceasefire without formal peace agreement signed by both sides, Zelensky responded that Ukraine's situation is distinct from that of the Korean peninsula. He noted that such discussions are mostly theoretical and pointed out that the end of the war might not be marked by a final agreement. Furthermore, he confirmed he would attend the UN General Assembly in New York, where he plans to discuss Ukraine's security guarantees with US leader Donald Trump. Furthermore, he called on Europe and the US to increase sanctions against Russia.